Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to bring you a quick update on Bitcoin because we've had some pretty major higher time frame closes. Yesterday, obviously it was the monthly close, it was also the quarterly close. So we're going to look what this means for the Bitcoin price, and we are also going to take a look at a few of the other tokens that seem to be performing very well as of late. So let's jump straight into Bitcoin. And this is Bitcoin on the daily. We can actually see that Bitcoin is maintaining in a bullish posture here. We seem to have climbed above some of our sort of near-term sort of local resistance, and we're now currently poised to go for a breakout above 31,000. Obviously, we've wicked above a couple of times. We saw quite a lot of volatility yesterday with this candle here. You can see a bit of a spinning top, and if I sort of move down to a 1 hour chart, we'll see that we saw this sort of massive sell-off. I mean, this all happened very, very quickly, and this was due to the SEC coming back and asking for some more detail on some of the ETF applications that have been filed. Obviously, notably the BlackRock ETF application. And I actually made a comment on this as it was happening, as I saw various messages starting to pop off in different groups around the SEC had actually rejected the ETFs, but this was not actually the case. Upon reading the detail, we could actually see that the SEC just wanted clarification as to what exchanges would be used on the filings. So this is really just an amendment. This is could be considered in some ways actually bullish, because the SEC firstly haven't rejected the ETFs. They certainly could have done. And secondly, it's almost as if they're actually telling BlackRock and these ETF applications, this is what you need to do to get the ETF approved, which in my mind is definitely not a bearish thing. So we actually saw the market snap back very, very quickly. And I remember a few sort of trading friends in groups. I mean, they were taking longs when we were sort of under 30K when we made this wick. And then we since sort of moved back up. We managed to hold this support here around the 30K zone, and now it looks like we're starting to trend up again. So yes, very, very volatile yesterday, but we can see that the Bitcoin is turning around quite nicely now. Was able to sort of recapture back into the middle of this trading range that we've got between sort of call it 31 and 30K, and we're now moving back to the upside. And yeah, we can kind of see on the daily there hasn't really been any invalidation or any damage done. So for me, as far as Bitcoin goes, I am still bullish. If we just go into the weekly and look at the slightly longer term timeframes, we can see here that Bitcoin is above the majority of its key moving averages, still below the 100, but I wouldn't say the 100 is the most relevant of the moving averages on the weekly. It's good that we've held the 20 week. It's good that we've held and we're above the 200 week, and now it looks like we're sort of pushing back into resistance around about sort of 30, call it about sort of 31, 32,000. So really I'm looking at these candle bodies. If we can start to close candles above 32K, then I will expect Bitcoin to run up to 36, 37,000. This level is kind of the area that I'm expecting Bitcoin to come into, and potentially higher from there. I mean, if we just kind of step back and look at the long-term picture, we can kind of see that once we lost this 30K level, we had this deviation, this sort of nice curved bottom. You can kind of call this a bit of a cup and handle as well. And certainly if we're now looking at this, we can get a move on this cup and handle sort of deep into the 40K area. So and obviously creating this diversion and then sort of coming back in, we'd expect Bitcoin most likely to probably move into the middle of this sort of trading range we've got here, call it sort of between sort of 60 and 30K. So, you know, the middle of that would give us sort of 45K. If you want to go from the top here, we're going to be a bit higher around this sort of 48K. So I'm actually thinking that, well, certainly the path of least resistance right now, if we do manage to close above this 30K, level this week would be higher, and I do see us coming up to around about the 48k level over the course of the rest of the year, most likely. I mean, is it possible that we come up to sort of 36 and then come back down? It certainly is, but I would imagine that if we were to do that, then we would hopefully hold 30k as support, and then we would look to push higher, probably into the 40k range. So you know, I'm not going to say there's not going to be pullbacks, but certainly after just coming through this pullback, we can probably expect to see some more upside. I mean, when Bitcoin has been trending up, you know, it's done here 1, 2, 3, 4, sort of 5 weeks of upside. We then sort of pulled back and consolidated. It did another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of upside. So potentially we're saying, you know, okay, we've done 1, 2, 3 weeks of upside so far. Potentially we have another couple of weeks of upside, which could take us to the mid-30s. We can maybe look to go sideways, flag out, maybe come down and retest 30k. But then, you know, do we get that move eventually sort of into the 40k range? I think right now it's looking quite likely, but obviously a lot can change, a lot can happen in the crypto market in a very short space of time. So you always have to be prepared to, you know, sort of adapt and adjust positions accordingly. But right now, for me, Bitcoin is looking fairly strong. If we move on over to Ethereum, we can see that, well, actually, we'll just go back to Bitcoin for a minute, because I did say we'd look at the longer term timeframes as well. So if we just flip it onto a monthly close now, we can see here that, you know, we've closed sort of back above these wicks from the middle of 2021. And we have also got above this, looks like the 20-week monthly moving average as well. So that's looking positive. So it would imply that we would now be looking for a move probably up to these candle bodies here, which are sort of the high 30k area, certainly up towards sort of the mid to high 30s. So yes, things are looking fairly good on a monthly time frame, and yeah, potentially even pushing higher again, potentially even up to that 48k level on a monthly. And just looking at the quarterly as well, we can see that similar kind of thing. Now we've got a nice quarterly close. We would expect to see some continuation, especially in the short term, probably up to some higher prices, like mid-30s, and then really after that we're looking at up to that 48k again. So that's sort of Bitcoin on the longer term time frames looking strong. If we now take a look at Ethereum, we can see that Ethereum has been lagging Bitcoin slightly. It's also broken out of this bull flag, and it now looks like it's ready to attack higher prices. So obviously Ethereum has a little bit of work to do to get back to its yearly highs, which are up around 2,100. But if we can break past there, then I would expect Ethereum to start to move on up, probably testing the underside of these candles here. So around about 2.5k would be my initial target, and then potentially running up to you know, similar levels to what 48k on Bitcoin would be, which would be about 3,500. So that potentially could be a longer term target for Ethereum. Again, similar to Bitcoin, it's come under the bottom of its range. It's seen this sort of W pattern here. So obviously it made its low back in June, never made a lower low at the end of last year in November, whereas Bitcoin did. So obviously there was relative strength in Ethereum there. And I think Ethereum's looking very healthy here. I'd be, you know, above all of its sort of longer term moving averages, aside from the 100 as well, which again is not the most significant moving average for Ethereum. So I think it's above the key ones that I want to see it above. And certainly, look, if we do, the thing is, if we do push up to say 2,500, we'll be above all the MAs. We can then probably lean on some of these as support if we do come down. But I think we would then be back within this sort of larger range here, and we could definitely be targeting like more the midpoint of that range, which would be around about 3.5k. So Ethereum is also looking very strong. if we just look at a couple of the altcoins as well that I covered in my video a couple of weeks back, there were some altcoins that I was saying, look, if we do get a drop sort of down back to retest these lower prices, I would be interested in accumulating. This is one of them in terms of Phantom. So Phantom did come down. Great place to add and to buy down here when it got down sort of under 30 cents, got as low as 23 cents. And Phantom, for me, a little bit of work to do to try and get back above some of these moving averages. But I think Phantom is looking strong here. And obviously, if we're looking at, Phantom sort of reverting back towards its range, I mean, it still has a way to go to kind of get back to $1. I mean, if Phantom was to be able to really push on and get back up to where it was, if I guess we can kind of see some support and resistance coming in around about 96, and maybe it doesn't get all the way to the dollar. Maybe that gets slightly front run, but that will still be over a 200% move. So I think Phantom is still a great pick. There's plenty of development and building going on there, and certainly it's one of my top altcoin picks for the next bull cycle. We can also see Link here. So the interesting thing about Link is that it found a deviation under this range. So you've kind of got a range here from around about $5.50 up to about 9.3, and obviously the price came down just under $5. Bit of a bear trap. Looked like we were going to go lower, but we got straight back in to our range, and I would now expect Link most likely to push to the upside, and at some point probably make it back to this $9.3 area. And it remains to be seen whether Link will be able to then push on from there. So that's one I've got my eye on. Also Litecoin. So Litecoin is approaching its halving. I think the halving is going to be slightly later than 4 years ago. So I think we're actually sort of forecasting a halving early August, I think the first week of August now. So around about sort of 35, 36 days out. And we can see that Litecoin really has gone on a tear, really yesterday. Really, really strong move. And I think with Litecoin, the key resistance on Litecoin is this 200-week moving average. So we can see how we've sort of come down. We've tested it a few times as support back at the start of last year before finally sort of breaking through it. And we've been under it for the best part of a year now. And Litecoin was another token that didn't make a new low at the end of last year. It actually bottomed out in the summer. And we can see that since then, Litecoin has been steadily trending up. It's been managing to hold this, looks like the 50-week moving average as support quite nicely. And right now it's attempting to break out above all of its longer-term weekly MAs. And I think if Litecoin can close above where it is right now, here or above, around this $105 mark or higher, I think we will see continuation with Litecoin. Obviously, its halving is approaching, but also it's been named as one of the altcoins that the SEC have said is safe. So it's looking to be listed on the first exchange is SEC approved, the Charles Schwab exchange. And look, I think Litecoin is well positioned here to really sort of get going to the upside if we see this sort of weekly close, like I say, above $105, and we can probably really start to push up. Then we've got some resistance from these fibs, obviously the first one being around about 130. We've got some underside resistance from these lows here, where these wicks are around about 142, and then we've got the next fib, which I'd say is probably a larger sort of key fib, around about sort of 174, which is going to be the 382. So look, I think Litecoin can really push up to these levels. I mean, if it really gets going, could definitely push higher, and in line with what Bitcoin and Ethereum end up doing. So yeah, I think obviously a lot will be dependent on what Bitcoin decides to do, but I think Litecoin is one that could also do very well over the next few months, especially sort of having that pardon from the SEC. And one of the other ones we looked at in my altcoin review video was Sol. So similar to Phantom, I said, look, if price does come back down here and look to retest its lows or get close to its lows, for me, that would be a buy. And it looks like right now Sol is trying to put in this higher low here. Obviously, if it can put in a higher low relative to the low it made at the end of 2022, then that'll be very, very encouraging. There is a bit of resistance around about $20. So we can see like the bottoms of these wicks here. Obviously, the high of this wick here was around about 19. So between $19 and $20 is a really big area for Solana. If Solana can break through that area, get above this red MA, which is the 20-week moving average, and look to base off that and then start to push above these highs around about sort of $26, $27, then I'll be fairly confident in saying we've probably seen the lows for Solana. And then we can start to target moves to the upside, potentially high as $70 coming in here, or maybe even a bit higher, and get up to these lows of around about 75. And that would make, you know, Solana look very strong, and obviously would be exactly what we would want to see if we were looking at Solana to recover to anywhere close to its all-time highs in the next bull run. I personally think that Solana can do it, but we just need a little bit more from the charts here in terms of the price action to really add a bit more confidence. And look, I mean, it's totally understandable if you're looking at Solana and wanting to wait for a bit more confirmation. I think a lot of people out there are looking to wait to see if Solana can get above sort of $26, $27, and then start to, you know, put in sort of higher lows, and then it will obviously form a pattern of higher highs on the weekly. And we can say that, look, you know, providing that Bitcoin and Ethereum and the rest of the crypto market remains quite strong and pushes back up to those levels and targets we were talking about earlier, we should probably expect that Solana will start to trend up with the rest of the market too. So I am going to leave it there for this video. I hope that was helpful. Obviously, just to summarize Bitcoin, we are looking strong here. We have made some great progress in terms of a very strong monthly and quarterly close. And certainly over the next few weeks, I would expect to see Bitcoin start to test some higher prices. Certainly the path of least resistance right now is higher. So yeah, I think, you know, I still maintain the view that this year, and this is a view I've had from the start of this year, that dips are for buying. This is a great time to accumulate. Obviously not financial advice. I'm just saying what I'm doing with my own money. But for me personally, I'm looking to accumulate on dips and, you know, really hold crypto right now to see if we get some of these higher price targets. I'll probably be playing it level by level in terms of whether I take bits off on the way. But yeah, things are looking fairly healthy. Obviously, the volatility yesterday from the SEC around the ETF filing seems like a bit of a nothing burger again. And all I will say, based on that, look, it would have cleared out a lot of the leverage. Probably there were quite a fair few traders that went short off the back of that news. So I really do think if we can get a close above this sort of 31K and start to move higher, we'll get a nice squeeze and a real nice push up a little bit higher. So yeah, I'm certainly looking at this with a bullish bias for now. And yeah, if you have enjoyed the content, please do support the channel. Please do like, please do share, and that'd be much appreciated. And I will see you on the next one.